Hello and welcome to The Gallant Goblin. I'm Theo and I have a very special paid Kickstarter preview for you today. It is a new RPG from a very established board game company coming to Kickstarter early next year. The game is One More Quest. The company is Horrible Guild. And if you come from a board gaming background like I do, you may have heard of some of their games or played them. Games like Potion Explosion, Dungeon Fighter, Railroad Inc., Steam Park, and King's Dilemma. Now, King's Dilemma, which is just perfect, proved that this company knew how to make a thoughtful game of medieval Game of Thrones style politics. But this game, One More Quest, is a spin-off of Dungeon Fighter. It combines your classic tabletop RPG mechanics that you're all probably used to from D&D and Pathfinder with dexterity mechanics pioneered in Dungeon Fighter. This is a real and robust RPG with its own lore and world, and it's ideal for those nights when you want everyone to laugh and have a good time. This game is meant to be lighthearted and fun above all else. Now for this video, I consulted their free Quick Start 2.0 guide, and you can go download it right now too for free to see all the rules and to try it out for yourself. If you previously checked out their 1.0 guide, there are a lot of updates with 2.0 that you should definitely check out. We have the link to the Quick Start guide, which includes all the rules you need, plus an adventure, pre-generated characters, monsters, and more down in the YouTube video description, and pinned comment below. Please go check it out. So, here's the deal. In One More Quest, when you need to roll a skill check or roll an attack, you don't just casually roll a d20 and hope that a high number comes up. Oh, no. In this game, everyone is rolling a d6 toward a target in the middle of the table. Your result depends on where it lands on the target. You, as the player, have to demonstrate some skill. Your result isn't what number shows up on the die, it's where the die lands on the target. But one side of the die does matter, namely this side with the icon on it. The other side's a blank. Now, if you're using a regular d6, it would be the 6, because that indicates a crit. A crit success if your dice hits the target, which will double your score, or a critical disastrous failure if the 6 shows up on a die that failed to hit the target. And depending on what skill you're rolling, there's a complication, or a throw restriction in the parlance of the game. Trying to sneak past a guard without her noticing, you need to roll that die while hiding under the table. Each skill, and there's a lot of skills, has a different throw complication attached to it. But that's not even the half of it. In our other RPGs, you may contract conditions, like blinded or encumbered or fatigued. Those are all in this game too, lots of them. And when you're suffering from one of them in this game, it adds further complications to your throw. For example, if you have the impaired condition, you have to toss that die with your offhand. If you're blinded, close your eyes. There are 37 different throw restrictions in their Quick Start guide, like throwing it with your nose if you're suffocating or perceiving with scent, throwing it while jumping if you're doing an athletics check or you're on fire, or bouncing it off your forehead if you are doing a knowledge trivia check or are disoriented. And there's a lot of guidance if you want to design your own restrictions too. And, as you may be thinking now, you're going to sometimes be combining different restrictions depending on what checks you're doing, what conditions you have, what equipment you're using, and oh yes, we'll get to that soon, and what talents your particular class, archetype, and drive have. So let me just give you an example from the book. A character named Marvin is using his Tome of Magic to discover the weakness of an elemental horror that he is currently in battle with. He only has a moment to find it if he wants to help his crew. His skill check throw has 3 restrictions placed on it. He has to hold the die with just 2 fingers because that's the restriction of an Arcana check. He has to have it bounce twice before hitting the target because he currently has the rushed condition because he's trying to find the weakness in one round, and he has to hold the die against his head to throw it because he's using the Tome of Magic, but that tome will give him a +2 to his result. Now, Marvin has some choices here. He could forego that Tome of Magic bonus to not have to hold the die against his head, or he could decide to not rush to find the answer, and that way he wouldn't have to worry about that double bounce, but it would mean that he wouldn't get the answer until next round. So part of this game is balancing risk versus reward, which is pretty cool. The difficulty of a check is usually set by the game master, with 3 being kind of a baseline for a medium difficulty check. Now let me tell you a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the game. Your characters have 6 overall ability scores: strength, agility, dexterity, intelligence, awareness, which is kind of like wisdom, and charisma. And each of those abilities has 4 skills attached to it. For example, strength has lift, resist, smash, and wrestle. Awareness has empathy, investigate, perceive, and spirit. So there are 24 skills in the game, each with their own throw restrictions. So when you're building out your character, you need to consider not just what kind of hero you want to play, but even which throw restrictions you think you as a player would be good at. And of course, there are guidelines for customizing all these factors if you need to build a game around the physical capabilities or limitations of the people at your table. Not to mention just trying to make the restrictions thematic for what's going on at the table narratively. The final book will have a lot of guidance for you about making the game accessible to as many people as possible. So now let's talk about combat. Initiative in this game is a little more free-form than maybe what you're used to. Whoever makes the first move in the narrative takes the first action in combat. Then play bounces to the other side and back and forth. So if a hero starts a combat, they go first. Then a monster of the GM's choosing goes. Then another hero of their choosing, and back and forth until everyone is gone, and then it's on to round 2. In round 2, the order may be different depending on the choices of the players and the GM. There's even a surprise round if folks are caught unaware, and you can resolve that with perceive and sneak checks, pretty much like the games you're used to. And on each turn, a hero can do one thing that's complicated enough to require a roll, but everything else from moving a short distance to drawing a weapon, drinking a potion, that's all free. When it comes to attacks, each weapon has its own throw restriction and characteristics. For example, with a standard dagger attack, you add your dex modifier and a +1, but you have to roll backwards. For a sword, you add your strength modifier and a +2, but you have to roll under your leg. For a bow, you add your dex modifier and a +2, but you have to make a little hole with your index finger and your thumb in one hand and then toss your die through it like that. Now, your results aren't compared against a difficulty level like a regular check. This is what they call a surplus check. If you get a die on the target here, your hit is a success. You're good. Just add up your total result. So that would be what band your die landed on, your ability score modifier, your weapon bonus, all that stuff. Then you subtract the defense rating of the creature, and that result is taken away from the creature's health. Easy. Now, some of these trick shots are pretty tough, as you might imagine. Luckily, there is a mechanic to give you an extra shot if you need it. After you make your throw, regardless of the result, you can attempt to push, which basically means you get to roll again hoping for a better result. You get a certain number of pushes per day, plus some can be bestowed by items or special talents that your characters may have. And the nice thing is that the results of all your throws are added together. You don't just have to take the highest one. Now, you need to know that this is a pretty robust RPG. It's not just a souped up version of Dungeon Fighter. You'll see that when you look through the 60-ish page PDF Quick Start guide, because the guide really only scratches the surface. But of course, this isn't like your typical heroic D&D or Pathfinder game either, at least in its tone. In these adventures, you aren't meant to be heroes saving the world from a diabolical threat. No. You are a motley band of screw-ups and desperate vagrants who probably find themselves stumbling into these adventures after losing a bet or angering the wrong tavern bouncer. And the world the game is set in is equally lighthearted. The world is called Middleware, a land of more than 20 countries, biomes, and cultures, from the untamable jungle to the demonic volcano Mount Despero, to Wisconsin, land of the weed elves, to the darkest of all kingdoms, the dark darkdom of darkness. Bring a torch. The character engine is also quite strong. Now, the Quick Start Guide doesn't give you all the information you need to create your own characters. You'll need the full book to do that. But it does include several pre-generated characters to get you started. Let's take a look at just one of them. Wilrond. He is an Ari Reverie elf bard. His archetype is lover, not a fighter, which gives him a boost to his agility and his charisma, and gives him the why can't we all just get along stunt ability, which we'll talk about in a bit. His drive is friends will be friends. He is a people person, like most bards. That gives him a +1 to his charisma, and another talent, sharing is caring, and we'll get to those in a sec. You can see his stats with his +4 to charisma and his +1 to agility, dexterity, and awareness. He has 15 health, a defense of 1, and 5 pushes that he can use during the day. He's armed with a spear, so he can use the double bounce restriction to get a +2 to his attack. He also has a dagger, so he can roll backwards to get a +1 with that if he likes. He carries around a lute, which he can use to get a +2 to his perform checks when he uses the restriction slide, which means you have to let the die just slide out of your hand instead of throwing it. And he has some light armor, which is where that defense of 1 comes from. Now, those talents that I was teasing. He automatically succeeds on a lot of musical-related checks with his bard competencies. He has inspiration, meaning that he can give his allies +2 on a check by adding the friendly restriction, meaning that they control his hand to throw the die. Can't We All Get Along is a stunt that he can optionally add to a check. Specifically, he has to add the hip restriction to get +2 to his charm checks to talk someone out of a violent situation. And hip means that the throw starts on the hip or touches it during the throw. And finally, he has Sharing is Caring, meaning that he can essentially give his pushes to his allies. And that's Wilrond. The Quick Start Guide 2.0 also includes Margarhilda, the Forgegrad Dwarf Spiritist, Marvin, the Protectorate Human Wizard, Grace Cleancut, the Lint Human Warrior, Prince Todd, the Frogwarts Batrashian, I think, Rogue, LeBron Bearskin, the Lint Human Ranger, and Tina Thunder, the Dragonfall Human Air Elementalist. They each have their own backstories and full character sheets in the Quick Start Guide. Finally, there's a standalone adventure called House of the Wizard Bros. In this adventure, a frat house full of wizarding students gets kicked off campus, at least as far as their raucous parties are concerned. No more partying in the frat house after that recent reverse centaur incident. We don't talk about that. So these rabble-rousing wizards have to find a new place to get down, and they're also looking for some payback. They end up stealing a priceless artifact from the university, the Amulet of Winging, which vaguely looks like an ultimate frisbee, and then they teleport away to a nearby dungeon to party off the grid. Now, this adventure, like everything else in the game, is detailed, robust, full of art, flavor, and humor, and I'm not going to spoil any of it here for you. You should go download the free Quick Start Guide and play it for yourself with your friends or family. It even has a printable target for your table like this one, which you can print in color or in black and white. It's both fine. And you've got really well-designed character sheets to help you remember not only the information about your character, but also those various throw restrictions and their related skills. Now, the free Quick Start 2.0 guide is available right now for free at the link below the video here. The actual Kickstarter is going live on January 25th, 2022. I don't even know all the details about the Kickstarter yet. I can tell you that the final hardcover book is going to be over 200 pages long with full color illustrations. It'll have dozens of cultures, classes, archetypes, and drives to create unique characters along with lots of weapons and items. There's a travel guide to middleware fleshing out the universe for Dungeon Fighter, giving you loads of plot hooks for your adventures. And yeah, this adventure does take place in the same universe as Dungeon Fighter. There will be loads of monsters and rules for automating their actions if you want to keep the action going and keep the focus on the players. There will be a lot of game mastering advice, as you can see in the Quick Start Guide, to help you learn how to push the action forward, even if the players fail some vital skill checks, to help you improve your improv and comedy skills, as this should be a fun, lighthearted game, and to make sure the game is accessible to all your players. And of course, there will be an adventure to lead your players on. If you're a fan of the Gallant Goblin here, I'm pretty sure you understand the basics of RPGs, so you can see how this one twists them up to make the game more dynamic and whimsical. Horrible Guild, the makers of the game, have a long and successful track record in the board gaming realm. They've successfully fulfilled 8 Kickstarters now, including Vampire the Masquerade Vendetta, the competitive card game, Railroad Inc. Challenge, the roll and write game that raised €500,000, and of course Dungeon Fighter, which forged the path that we're walking down now. So I have no doubt that this Kickstarter is going to be huge, professional, and comprehensive. Go get yourself that free Quick Start 2.0 guide and see what you think. If you have any questions, leave them for me in the comments down below here. And if you want to see more of our reviews and actual plays of tabletop RPGs, come join me at The Gallant Goblin on YouTube. You can also join our Discord server to chat about One More Quest and lots of other games. And finally, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For now, though, have fun, stay safe, love each other, and I'll see you next time at The Gallant Goblin.